Hello and welcome to the Emma's for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abby Halberstadt, happy wife, mama to 10, Bible-believing Christian, and I have a really informative show for you today, especially if you have kids that you're wanting to teach life skills with handling money, or you have kids who want to be entrepreneurs or start a business as a kid and then grow that knowledge as they get older. You're going to love this one. Before I dive in, I want to remind you about our podcast sponsor, Your Tinkler. If you are a mom who thinks that peeing when you laugh or cough or sneeze is just your lot in life after having babies, I have wonderful news for you. The Tighten Your Tinkler program is a way to regain your dignity and help heal your pelvic floor without Kegels, without surgery, without devices. In fact, you can take their free quiz at tightenyourtinkler.com, and in just 10 minutes a day, you can improve your pelvic floor health. You can use the code MAMA50 for $50 off their program at tightenyourtinkler.com. And of course, I want to remind you about our friends at VotebergMusicAcademy.com. BMA is such a fun way for your kids to learn from the comfort of your own home. You can take shuttling your kids to and from music practice off of your to-do list completely, and you can have your student or students learn together for as little as $30 a month using the code MSForMama20 for 20% off each month that you're enrolled. They have lessons in ukulele, fiddle, mandolin, guitar, and piano, and you can even get badges, physical badges and ribbons mailed to your door, which what kid doesn't like receiving that kind of happy mail for achievements in their program? You have access to your instructor 24/7, and it is such a fun, engaging way to learn. You won't have to badger your kids to practice. Use the code MSROMA20 at checkout for 20% off each month you're enrolled at VotebergMusicAcademy.com. Okay, friends, I have a resource for you on the show today that I think that every parent will appreciate, because he is here to help moms and dads teach their kids how to pursue entrepreneurship, how to learn life skills, how to basically take a lot of stuff that education presents to us in fragments and hopefully synthesize them into something that we can practically apply and use. Did I say that right, Bryant Greening? I hope you agree with how I introduced you.
You did, and I agree wholeheartedly. I really appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and talk with your audience.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about why this is something that you feel passionate about, that you have even gone so far as to create a resource that parents can use. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. And why you think parents could be better equipped than they are to help their kids learn all of these things.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to start is just to talk a little bit about myself, which I honestly don't like doing, but I think that's the easiest way to get us into the topic. I am an entrepreneur. I have been an entrepreneur pretty much my entire life. Since I was a little kid, I was passionate about, everything from setting up lemonade stands, from going door to door. And eventually I ended up starting my own company. I am a lawyer. I started my own law firm. And my whole life has been about using these skills, the creativity, business acumen, everything from creating a logo, which is artistic, to balancing a checkbook and doing taxes, more math-based. I love every part of it. And what I realized growing up in the traditional school system is that none of that was really being taught to me. I was not learning, those skills that I could transfer into the real world. I had to teach myself in a lot of ways. And as I became a parent, I've got two little kids. I started to see that they had the same excitement, the same enthusiasm for, entrepreneurship. And they also were not getting those lessons and not having those abilities. And I felt, I did it myself. I should help. I should help my kids and develop something that allows them to move forward at a quicker pace than I was allowed to, given the education that I got.
So are your kids also in a traditional school system?
My kids are. So we go to public school, and I appreciate a lot of what's going on there, but I think that there's a lot of holes that need to be filled in. There's a lot of opportunities that are missed, particularly when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I just think that having this basic set of skills opens up so many doors and allows so many kids that that want to go down that path and don't even know it. We can step in and we can fill those gaps. And that's really what I'm aiming to do.
Yeah. I think probably So I'm a former public school teacher. I'm a current home educator. I was home educated myself. I've also taught in private school. I've also taught at homeschool co-ops. So I'm pretty well versed in practically every version of traditional education and, non-traditional, although homeschooling is becoming more and more mainstream. And I think from my perspective as a former high school Spanish, English, and ESL teacher, there just wasn't time to go down a lot of these paths and also fulfill the purview of the district goals or things like that. So I think what I hear you saying is that there's these gaps that we as parents can fill simply because that's not what the traditional education system is geared toward. They're geared toward having 20 to 30 students in a class, and it's difficult to then break that down by interest. I mean, when I hear you saying, I loved all of it, that's unusual. You recognize that, right? Like most people don't like the art side and the math side.
Yeah, I could tell you that I enjoyed the art side, the creative side more than the math side. But once I started like really developing my business, like that's what the business is. I mean, the math is how you generate an income. It's how the business is successful and how the business is sustained. So you have to get into that. You have to love it. And to be able to teach myself how to get from point A to point B, I found to be really exciting. I tell people all the time, I'm a lawyer by trade, but I would be just as happy if I was owning a restaurant or if I was owning a shoe store or whatever it might be. I want to be my own boss. I want to figure out how to bring customers in the door. Ultimately the business has to be profitable. So I have to figure out how to make something that doesn't exist into a profitable venture. And I loved every part of that, stemming from the creativity and ending up with, with the math.
Well, and clearly, just from the way that you're presenting yourself, talking about being willing to make the effort to teach yourself, figuring out how to teach yourself, where a lot of people would think, well, I don't know where to start, and therefore I'm not going to start. You are a go-getter personality. That is the impression that I am getting from you immediately. And there are going to be a lot of people that think that is not who I am naturally. It's not who my kids are. I've never seen interest in my 7-year-old to start a business. He likes to swing on the tire outside and read books in the sunshine. Do you feel like this is something that it's accessible to all kids, or do you need to be that go-getter personality?
So no, I think that's a really great question. And the way that I see the workbook that I've created and the skills that I'm trying to teach is that they are applicable to everyone. It's not just somebody who necessarily wants to run their own business at the end of the day. There are little pieces of the entrepreneurial spirit that are relevant to everyone. If you have an artistic kid, focus on the logo creating, focus on the construction of building a stand. If you have a child who is more interested in interpersonal relationships, focus on the marketing, the customer service, the advertising. There are just little pieces of this, the whole system that are applicable to everyone. And what I've seen with my kids is that by focusing first on the things that they're really excited about, you can then take those little nuggets and move to the next step and say, hey, you've got this really great idea. You really like selling this product. Let's now move and figure out how we can take it to the next level. And they get excited about moving from step one to step two because you started with something that they were really interested in at the get-go.
Yeah, I think that that's a good principle in a lot of areas of life. Start with passion and then figure out how to make it practical. Because a lot of people have passions that never come to fruition because they really don't have the discipline to turn it into actionable steps. And then a lot of people are really practical, but they don't really know what they enjoy, or they do things they don't enjoy. And there's not a lot of motivation to excel and exceed expectations when you don't really like what you do. So
Right.
if you could find a way to combine that passion with the practical steps forward, I think that's ideal. So what we're talking about is a physical resource that Bryant has created called Piggybank Playbook. I had to re-record that phrase 3 times before I got it out. So I love the alliteration, but apparently I can't say it. And it's literally, I mean, this is so old school. I love it. This is not a PDF. This is not an online resource. This is something you can hold in your hands. Do you feel like that's a significant thing? Do you feel like that matters?
It matters so much. By getting away from the screen and forcing both the parent and the child to look at a book together, sit down at the kitchen table, and fill out the workbook, I think it just allows for the practical skills to be harnessed. It allows for creativity to flow. We're talking about actually putting pencil to paper, crayon to paper, whatever, however your child best learns, like this workbook here, this allows them to get it from their brain onto the piece of paper, which really moves it forward and into reality.
Yeah. You said crayon to paper. I love that. What age do you feel like is ideal to start this?
So I've been targeting kids that are between the ages of about 8 and 12, where the math part of it, I think if you're a little younger, parents are going to have to be a little bit more involved. But really the concepts are there for, like second, third grade and beyond.
That's fantastic. So starting out, you've got this sectioned really in an organized way. And your first one is brainstorming. I'm a homeschool mom. I know what it's like to brainstorm with a kid to write a paper, for example. You get a lot of blank stares. Asking kids to brainstorm when they're not used to the concept of coming up with ideas from thin air is hard sometimes. Adults maybe get to the point where they're ping-ponging and popcorning all kinds of ideas. But as you've done this with your own kids, because I think you mentioned your daughter is 9, is that right?
Yeah, she's 9. She's about to turn 10. Yep.
And I'm assuming have you done the whole workbook with her?
From start to finish, we've gone all the way through. We've created a business together.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to hear more about what the business is here in just a second. But for the parent who is encountering those blank stares and already feels a little defeated, like, oh, okay, there's nothing in there. Like there's nobody home on this. There's no interest. How do you feel like it's best to kind of draw out or give them ideas without putting words in their mouths?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great question because we don't want to do the work for them. We want to allow them to be creative and come up with the ideas themselves. We do give examples throughout the workbook of, do you want to create a lemonade stand? Do you want to bake cookies? Do you want to create art that we can sell? I think what's important to note early on about the workbook is it's kind of based around a stand. The idea is that we're going to create the classic lemonade stand or the classic cookie stand, and we want to figure out how are we going to get that general idea out to the public and then take it from an idea in your brain out to something that's in your front yard. So the brainstorming part of it, I think, is all about discussion. It's about communication. What is the goal here? The goal is to create something that you're going to sell. What do you want to sell? Come up with 3 ideas that you want to sell. And I've heard some ridiculous ones. I've heard everything from I want to sell my shoes, and I said, well, we need your shoes. But it comes down to, let's come up with something that we can make together, which in and of itself is a project. If you've got a child who enjoys being in the kitchen, let's start with the bake sale. If you've got a child who's more creative, let's go with the art sale. The brainstorming, I think, comes naturally when we allow the child to harness whatever their interests are and then nudge them towards that in terms of a product.
Yeah. And as the playbook progresses, it's like a funnel. You start with the really wide part with the big ideas. Mm-hmm. And then I hear you giving feedback, obviously, for the ideas that are absolutely untenable. So no, we can't sell your actual shoes. Nobody wants them. And yes, you need them. And then you're kind of narrowing down more and more until you get to the really nitty gritties of, let's say that we successfully, so my kids do lemonade stands fairly regularly. The neighborhood that we are in it's not conducive to that, but they have some friends that are in pretty much the primo perfect neighborhood for lemonade stands, the kind where like people drive by and here's like $20 for a cup because they just have the extendable income. You're like, God dang, this is awesome.
That's not bad.
No, except for when it like skews their expectations toward that's how life is. But yes. That's okay. They'll find out soon enough. So yeah, they've done a lot of lemonade stands. They've done bake stands, all of those things. And then it's, what do we do with this money? How do we actually save or spend or reinvest. And so I love that you are getting down to, oh man, as a homeschool mom, math. Like that's fantastic because I just did math with my 7th graders this morning. And it was the most theoretical math where you end up with like an answer like 24 plus 2 times the square root of 12. And they're like, this means nothing to me. So where do you feel like getting down to the nitty gritties and the really practical math helps kids to envision where this could actually go?
Well, I think what you just said really, that resonates with me so well, because when I was in school and doing math and we were doing square roots and doing like, what was the real world applicability, excuse me. Where was I ever going to use this type of knowledge in my day-to-day life? And the truth is, not once as an adult have I need to find the square root of anything. Yeah. Where I'm using these skills is how much of a certain product do I need to sell in order to make sure that I can make my money back plus some. And that's really the type of math that we're doing in this playbook. We're not using huge numbers. We're not making the numbers inaccessible to children of any age. We're talking 2, 3, 5, 10s. If you can figure out how much am I spending to create the lemonade, I'm adding up the cost of the mix, the cost of the cups, the cost of signage, whatever I needed to create this stand. How much do I need to sell if I'm selling it for $2 a piece in order to turn a profit? And those are really tangible ways to look at math skills and figure out how this is actually going to apply in the real world. I'm not I understand that you need to get into the more challenging math later in school. I understand that we need to work with bigger numbers, but when we're talking to kids,
or at least some people do. I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily one size fits all. If you're going to be an engineer or you're going to be an architect, you absolutely need to know how to work out, the physics and the math behind the bridge that you're building or whatever. But I write books. I am actually fantastic at practical math. And someone's like, well, good for you, Abby, but I am horrific at theoretical math. My brain doesn't care. I mean, give me finding percentages off when I'm shopping. Give me fractions while I'm baking. Give me very fast multiplication when I'm, needing to figure out how many of I have of this. And like you say, how much is going to be left over and how much I need to spend to meet my budget. I love all of that. And so what I hear from you is that you're making this accessible to kids that could end up in a wide variety of circumstances. Managing a home, being a lawyer, being a doctor, being a business owner, an entrepreneur, all of those require you to be able to manage a budget.
In your day-to-day life requires that. It's not just the business that you're going into. We were talking before the show started about how many kids can't balance a checkbook and don't even really know what a checkbook is. This gives them those basic skills to enter the real world, understanding how a business works, because that's how they're going to interact with business all the time. They're going to interact with these simple math problems. They have to understand. When I go to the car dealership for the first time and am negotiating by buying a car for the very first time, why is it that the salesman is acting a certain way? These are just life skills and basic functions that kids don't get in a traditional school setting, that by giving them a practical outlet to learn them sets them up for all sorts of situations in the future. And it's not just profit. It's not just, if it costs X and then I get Y. When me and my daughter do, she likes to do more nonprofit things where she's going to do a business where she donates to charity. When we do those sorts of ventures, all that money goes to charity. We're not, we're going to take that profit and it's all going to go. On the other hand, if she's trying to make a couple bucks from it and she decides this is a day where I'm going to try to put some more money in my piggy bank, well, that's an opportunity for me to teach her about tax and savings. I say, okay, you made $20 today. I'm going to take $2 of it for tax. She's like, well, what's that? We have that conversation. you're going to take $4 of that, and we're going to put it towards your savings, which is just like, another little piggy bank, where she understands that $20 in the bank doesn't necessarily mean $20 that she gets to go spend on candy. There's just all sorts of life skills that we're learning by going through this business practice.
Well, and I also hear you saying that you're providing kids with confidence. And I often feel my heart breaking a little in public situations where it's clear that the person, for example, working the cash register isn't familiar with basic math, and they're flustered if the machine isn't giving them the numbers back, and they're having to do it in their heads and things like that. Now, hypothetically, that should have been something for sure that they practiced a lot in school. But without that intrinsic motivation of something that they were passionate about, it may not have stuck, And so I really like the concept that you're gifting kids with confidence to feel like they can handle basic numbers with ease and not be embarrassed in a public situation when they run up against a question.
That's exactly right. And we actually have a section in our book about counting change. So it's not just counting profit. It's what do you do when you're in that situation where a customer gives you a $20 bill and the cup of lemonade only costs $2. How are you going to work that out? We have practice math problems that allow them to gain that confidence with you next to them, in the workbook before they have to put that into practice at the stand and with customers looking over them. So there's
perfect
confidence, and there's confidence in dealing with people.
Yes, and that I love. That is a funny. That's a funny accusation against homeschoolers specifically, is that they're not socialized well. But what I have found to be true for most homeschoolers that I've encountered, and for myself personally, for my own children, is that with the time freedom that you have to have a lemonade stand at 2 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. because you're not in school, there are so many opportunities to have those face-to-face connections with people of different ages, of different walks of life, and you're providing them through this entrepreneurship opportunity with a way of developing people skills too, which is just another life skill. And I am all about kids, niching down to something they're passionate about, but just having life skills in general, people skills, knowing how to interact well and bless others with their attention and their articulation and their interest. I want to circle back to the business. I don't know if it's more than one that you've created with your daughter, because I know people would love to hear a specific example if you'd be willing to share.
I would. I'll tell you the one that we're working on right now, and it is much more charitable focused rather than profit focused. We went through the workbook together, and that was we did a standard lemonade stand. We had an awesome time doing it. But she started thinking, what are other creative ways that I can make money and donate to charity in terms of what we're bringing in. And she came up with this idea all by herself. She said, I want to do a talent show where I get kids in the community to all come together and sign up for whatever their talent is going to be. And I'm going to charge $3 per kid to participate. And I'm going to charge $5 per person who doesn't participate but wants to be part of the audience. And she's organizing this whole thing. She's creating the flyers. She's going door to door and asking if people want to join. She came up with the idea. We've got like a little community center with an outdoor stage of, she wanted to email the mayor and say, can we use this stage for this opportunity? Of course, he said yes. So she's created this show based on the skills that she's learned in this book, where she's developing a business model. She's going door to door. She's doing the customer service. She's doing the marketing. And she's ultimately going to collect all this money, whatever she earns, and she's going to donate it to homeless children in our area. So I'm really proud of her. And it all stems from just having this itch of, I want to do something creative. I want to be a business owner. And now she's like a nonprofit, CEO.
Yeah, she's a philanthropist. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I do love that you address this, because I have definitely found that it's easy for kids to get pretty money focused and thinking about themselves and thinking about what they can get out of this. It's definitely easy for adults to do that. And so with the idea being that this playbook would not just be about make money, 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 profit, 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 but instead could also set you up to kind of zoom out and look for ways to use these life skills to be a blessing to others. That's just tell your daughter congratulations. That's such a fantastic idea. I love that. When is this all going down?
It's going to be in May, so we've got a little bit of time. She's telling all the kids it's time to practice. So she's kind of a tough.
Does she have a bunch of people signed up?
She has a list of 18 kids so far. So we're
that's amazing.
Yeah, we're.
Is she pre-selling tickets to the families, or what? How does that work?
She's just taken down names and numbers. It's been really funny to watch her interact with both the kids and the parents, and I feel like the customer service aspect of it has been the most interesting. She will have a very sweet conversation with the kids. What skill do you want to show off? Are you going to, juggle? Are you going to do soccer? Whatever it is. And then with the parents, it's very firm. It's very, here are the details of the event. We'll be here at, from 3 to 4 p.m. And she's got so much confidence dealing with both age groups. And I think she's got a innate understanding, I think, of how to best get her message heard and across to everybody she's talking to. So I'm really proud of her. I don't know if it comes from the playbook or from me, or she just came out that way, but here she is.
I bet it's a combo. I'm sure that it helps so much to have you facilitating this with the resource, but just being her dad. There's a whole trend going around. I did an entire podcast on it where it's kind of throwing kids to the wolves with the goal of having them form autonomy, but it's without a playbook. It's just like send a 5-year-old inside a store with some money to 5-year-old, not 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And, sit in the car and wait for him to come out, which I feel like is a recipe for disaster in so many ways, including dangerous ways. And there's just kind of this idea of free range kids who should just come out of the womb and be able to advocate for themselves. But that's really not a very realistic, as a mom of 10, that's not a very realistic representation of how most kids are. It sounds like your daughter is a self-starter and probably does get it from her dad. But I really, maybe it's not a side note, maybe it's an essential note to this podcast, but as a side note to the parents listening, what you're hearing is Bryant coming along his child in an age-appropriate way, doing what dads should do, which is fill in the gaps for the things that parents and adults are responsible for while giving her the freedom to do age-appropriate responsibilities. And oh my goodness, the confidence levels that you gain from that are epic.
They really are. And Abby, one of the things that I really love about your channel is that everybody here is we're trying to raise thoughtful, capable kids. That's something that we all care about deeply. And we're trying to figure out the best ways or creative ways to get to that end. And, when my daughter came to me and said that she wanted to take building a business more seriously, that's why I created the playbook. I wanted to find a way to speak to her, to make sure that she had the tools that she needed to, like I said before, scratch that itch. And it's worked. I've seen it go from start to finish, and we're watching her continue to grow. And I'm excited to see it. And hopefully, parents out there see this opportunity and other opportunities as just a way to watch our kids grow into the most successful people, whether that means business or otherwise, that we can possibly create.
That's amazing. That's exactly how I'm thinking of it, is parents coming alongside to facilitate growth for our children. So absolutely aligned on that. And one way that you're going to help our listeners and watchers do that is by offering 100 of your Piggybank playbooks to the first 100 people that email you, correct? Am I getting that right?
That's correct. So you can email me at ceo@piggybankceo.com. And the first 100 people that reach out, I will mail you the playbook for free.
That's amazing.
Our goal here is to put this in as many hands as we can, and to help as many families, just continue to help our kids grow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will put his email address in the show notes so that you guys can find that. Bryant, if someone isn't one of the lucky first 100, is there somewhere they can find this elsewhere?
Yeah, the best place to buy the playbook is on Amazon, and you just look up Piggybank Playbook, and it should pop right up. We're really excited about what we're developing, so Amazon's a great way to find it.
Perfect. Anything you want to leave our audience with?
Just that I'm really excited about what we've created, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, Abby. It's been really fun, and I, thank you, and I just love the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to come on and talk about this. I think this is going to serve my audience really well. Thanks for coming on, Bryant, and I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
If you enjoyed the M's for Mama podcast, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and follow along, maybe share with friends, or even leave a review. And if you want more content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, be sure to follow along on Instagram at m.is.for.mama.